Welcome everybody to the first ever FoxATM interview. I'm Vincent from FoxATM, and my guest today is Johannes Schuster, co-founder of Aeroficial Intelligence. We are still waiting for a few participants, but we will start anyway. First of all, I have to say that the interview is recorded. The recording will be made available later on Zoom. So whatever you say, whatever question you ask afterwards, be careful, you are on record. The plan for today is first to let Johannes introduce himself and Aeroficial. Then I will have a discussion with him, asking a few questions about the company, the products, the offerings, the specifics, and so on. Then he will give us a demo of what Aeroficial can offer in terms of services and products. And then we will have a more open Q&A with a broader subject, discussing the industry, discussing the trends. And at that stage, participants will also be able to have their questions. So you can either use the chat function or the Q&A function of Zoom, or you can just raise your hands and we can give you the microphone during the part of the interview after the demo. So here is Johannes. He's locked down at home, as many of us, who is locked down in grass, not doing sports, not flying around the world, not climbing mountains as he likes to, but home, as probably many of us, because of COVID. So Johannes, the floor is yours.
Oh yeah, thanks Vincent for this kind introduction, and thanks a lot for being here. It's a pleasure. It's not actually so bad to be home. I have my computer, I have a good screen here, everything is settled, and as a software company, it's actually quite, it doesn't really make a difference where you work from, but for the industry, yeah, it does actually. So yeah, there are quite a few challenges, but I think we come to this anyway later. First of all, as Vincent said, my name is Johannes. I'm co-founder and one of the directors of Aeroficial Intelligence. I actually started my career back with studies in aviation management. I worked for Deutsche Lufthansa for crew planning, cockpit, and then in a market intelligence department in alliance and cooperation partnerships, where I also met my current colleague and co-founder, who had this awesome idea to use surveillance data, especially ADSB, and put a market intelligence tool on top of it. After that, I actually was working at the stock exchange in Frankfurt, and joined forces together with Julian 2 years later in 2017. Where another colleague and co-founder, who's a technical expert, joined our team, and the three of us, we founded a company of Aeroficial Intelligence. We applied for an incubation program within European Space Agency. We got accepted, and yeah, since January 2018, we have established a tool named Performance Cockpit, with the intention to analyze, especially Team A of airports, and the ground especially, different processes, capacity, delays, congestions in particular. Yeah, here we are.
Okay, thank you, Johannes. I have a very unpolite question, but you know me, so and lots of people do not know me. You're all still pretty young, so I dare to ask how old all of three of you are, founders?
Yes, all the three of us are founders of the company, and we're currently 4 people in the team, and that's it. I think this was your question, right?
And you are all below 30, if I may ask, or close to 30 of age.
Yeah,
I'm
actually turning 30 this year, so I'm getting a bit older, but yeah, the others are also under 30. Yeah.
Congratulations on starting so young and so rapidly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can say a lot about that, but you communicated last year that one of your first customers is Air Baltic. So you're out of purely incubating and doing research and development. So you actually have products in operation with customers.
Yeah, that's true. We're in production already. Took us some time to develop the product, but after 2 years, we have built a quite good product. And I think Airbaltic is also one of key partner where we also work together. Of course, there are also others. I think also ANSPs is a very important point where we provide a lot of benefits too. Yeah, it's developing.
So you are not targeting specifically airlines or airports or ANSP. You are targeting all three.
We are generally targeting all three, especially also the applications that we have developed, like capacity bottlenecks. Often it's not just related to ANSPs, it's also related to airlines and to the airport itself. And I believe when all participants, all stakeholders work together most efficiently, then you can gain the most efficiency. And also to reduce, for instance, runway occupancy time. It's not just that the ANSP can reduce it, but you actually need everyone on the table. And that's why the tool helps all three stakeholders.
So you mentioned airport and TMA. So you are obviously addressing congested airspace. Are you also targeting en route center for at a later stage, or is it already in the offerings?
The current offering is very much targeting surveillance data in the TMA of an airport with a special focus on ground operations. This is the reason why we actually also launch own receiver stations to airports and run our analytics on ADSP data primarily. I mean, en route is something that we still take into consideration to develop at a later stage, but currently it's focused on the TMA. Yeah.
You said something which is important. You are also doing the hardware part of it, meaning you don't rely on the surveillance of your customers if they have, because airlines don't, or on providers like FlightAware or FlightRadar 24. Can you also do that, or are you doing exclusively your own hardware?
Well, it's primarily based on our own hardware because of different reasons. One is explicitly that we have control of the data stream from end to end. The other one is that we need a very sound coverage also in terminal near areas and also cover all stand positions. And on the other side, we need a high resolution of the positioning data of the aircraft. Just to give you an example, I mean, an aircraft during landing, if it lands at 120 knots, can go for quite a distance within a few seconds. And that's why a resolution is quite important to estimate, for instance, the touchdown point or the speed when the aircraft vacate from the runway.
Good, thank you. One more question before we go into the demo. The name of the company itself says it. You are tending towards artificial intelligence, AI, I assume big data, deep learning, and all these mechanisms. So where are you with that right now? Are you already having AI algorithms in your tools, or is it in the plan for the future?
As you recognized very well, and I'm very happy about it. And Aeroficial intelligence is not just the name; it's a combination of two important terms. One, of course, artificial intelligence. The other one is the specific connection to the aeronautical sector, and it's derived of it. So currently, we have made predictions, different predictions. Taking into account congestions and so on, weather information to estimate landing times, flight durations. We also have a special focus, as I said, on ground operations. So everything that happens during the taxi out and taxi in process is very important for us, such as queues, such as de-icing processes, everything that relates to higher taxi out times, etc. And based on that, we made some prediction models. And in the future, we also aim to go a few steps beyond. and this is really much focused on the analytics part, the post-flight analytics part, to say on the one hand, there is a problem actually. You have very high runway occupancy time, but also say, what was the reason for that? Was it because of a low deceleration? Was it because of a long landing? There are different aspects, and this can be solved with the help of AI. And the other direction, to predict congestions beforehand, before they actually happen, like sector capacity. Will I have a problem in 1 or 2 hours time? And can I maybe take mitigating actions? I think these fields are very much targeted in the future from our side.
Great. You mentioned a few important keywords here. One is prediction. And everybody trying to do planning and capacity management wants prediction. But the question is always, what's the prediction horizon? Are you doing predictions for the next 5 minutes, for the next 10 minutes, for the next hours, or prediction for the next day based on what happened last year, for example?
Well, first of all, it's always important to have historical data, because you need to train the system. You need to know what has happened in the past to learn from it. And the next thing is to bring this knowledge to the future. One thing is, you need to start at some point in time. We actually did it from the departure of the aircraft, so at the origin airport, to estimate when the aircraft will land, and got very good results. The intention, long-term speaking, is also to have a total pre-planning tool that shows over different rotations of the airlines, when they actually have or face a delay and when they have a problem. And this can go more than 1 day beyond.
Okay, thank you. So you are implicitly saying, and that was the second question, the solution you propose is not only analytics backward, it's also real time. You are also able to generate alerts to say, just now there is something happening on my runway, or is it really analysis in post-tactical mode?
Well, currently the product is very much focused on analytics, on post-flight analytics, and to identify problems. Where do they actually happen? Is there a problem, and what was the reason for that? This is something that we take a special focus on at the moment. And the prediction part, it's there, but this is really depending on what is required on the market. And we develop it further. But currently we very much focus on post-flight analytics.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's time now for the demo. We have some questions coming in. Thank you for that. So please feel free to use the Q&A module of Zoom to send your questions. We are collecting them, and I will go through them after the demo.
Optimal. So I try to share my screen. I actually brought one specific use case with me, because we currently run analytics based on the flights, and have more than 60 KPIs per flight. And I feel that especially runway occupancy time is one KPI that is very important to measure capacity at airports. Yeah, I brought one example from Zurich Airport. This is called the Performance Cockpit. It's a web-based application. This is also very important to understand. It's not that it's on an premise basis or so. Depending on what airport or what area of the world the client wants to take a look at, we can provide statistics and analytics capabilities in the Performance Cockpit. So runway capacity is one very decisive factor, and we calculate runway occupancy time, for instance, for Zurich Airport on each runway and per flight. And what you can see here is a dashboard functionality. This means we have a dashboard where we can build different KPIs and different visualizations based on the information you want to see. In this case, I want to see runway occupancy time, and I've decided to have a distribution of departure runway occupancy time here and arrival runway occupancy here. On the right side, you see the average values per these two KPIs. And when you take a look at the distribution of runway occupancy times, you see, and the different coloring options represent each a different runway, then you actually see that most of the departure runway occupancy times took place around 1 minute and 40 seconds and 1 minute and 50 seconds. In arrival runway occupancy time, you see a separation between green and blue. And this is quite obvious. I mean, the blue runway is often taking for arrivals, of course, and also the 1-4. And of course, for the 1-4, it's very good to run to taxi to the latest vacation exit. So that's why the runway is often blocked longer compared to the runway 28. To get a feeling of what is actually the average value, average departure runway occupancy time, and the other way around, you see at arrival they have 52 seconds on average runway occupancy time. I can even go back in time and select another date, and the tool is being calculated. So the data is there, the calculations is there. The thing is, what is a good value? Usually airports, ANSPs, they have targets, what they want to achieve and what they can achieve. The thing is, if I understand that there is maybe, if I take a look at very specific aircraft, they're varying quite a lot. So if I see that some aircraft are spending a lot of time on the runway while others not, then it's always the question, why is that? Is there a particular reason for that? Is there maybe an aircraft in front of them crossing the runway? Can have different reasons. Also for the arrival, there's one taking a long time while the others are actually around 1 minute. And this is exactly also what can be monitored over time. If there are targets from the ANSP or the airport, and to see, do I do better by taking some measures like taking a certain vacation exit instead of another one? Does it make sense to take a high-speed roll-up? These are all important questions, and this can be easily monitored with the tool. In this case, I see on this particular day, for arrivals, it took me 48 seconds, and on a day later, it took me 57 seconds. I could dig down and take a look, what was the reason for that? I can go to another dashboard and take a specific look at vacation exits. I can even choose a certain runway, what I can do here. And I see when just looking at all aircraft that were landing at runway 28, was there actually a difference between the vacation speeds? Was there a difference between different aircraft types? I can do it here. So like the line chart represents the vacation speed, and I directly see that at the vacation exit Lima 9, there is a very high vacation speed, while here they're quite low, like the Juliet one. And this is very important to understand where are they actually located. The Lima 9 is actually one of the last ones with the B9 in Zurich at runway 28. And yeah, and these these bar charts represent each a certain aircraft type. And there you also see between Echo and Bravo 9, the Bravo 9 has a really higher arrival runway occupancy time. In this case, it's really because the vacation exit is at a later stage. And this is just an example of what the performance cockpit does. It can take a look at one value like runway occupancy time, shows this is actually taking higher than expected, then taking a look at vacation speed, then taking also a look at deceleration speed and some other values. And this is exactly the benefit to see quite quickly a certain value and how it is developing over time, to monitor it and not to use data that is quite not easy to access. This is a good thing about ADSB. It's freely accessible, and all analytics are just done the day after. So you get access to the to all the statistics then. Yeah, thanks. This was the short demo. Very quickly,
Okay.
briefly.
Thank you, Johannes. We have a few questions coming in. You're obviously free not to answer, especially the first one, which came in. Who are your customers? I know it's a touchy one. So if you prefer to be fuzzy on that, feel free.
Yeah. Basically, I can't provide any specific names. Generally speaking, we have a special focus on ANSPs and also airport institutions, airlines as well. There are all problems. I think we always have to go back to the problems that occur, especially at congested airports, and it often results in queues. You have taxi out times. Some aircraft are blocking each other. Sometimes they don't know when to leave the certain stand position and what they can expect. These are all very important things, and they apply to airlines as well as to ANSPs and airports.
Okay. Another question, which is more technical about the context. You are working with surveillance data. Are you also able to introduce or to take account of flight plan or let's say AODB data? Because to do the taxi out prediction or to do the taxi time prediction, knowing what is going on in the turnaround process is very valuable. Or do you focus yourself exclusively on surveillance?
Yeah, basically it's based on surveillance data, but we've also integrated the Eurocontrol network manager and schedule information and also weather information, of course, because these are also impacting a lot of processes. Just speaking about de-icing processes, you actually need to know the meter. You need to know what's going on there, and that's why we also not just base or put our bases on surveillance data, but integrate other data sources to get even more value out of the tool.
Next question came in. Have you had the opportunity to work with ACDM as well as non-ACDM airports? And if yes, have you seen differences there?
Well, the special focus is, of course, on big airports, and this is, of course, the area where collaborative decision-making makes most sense. Currently, we mainly focus on these kinds of airports, but we don't make a difference if there is an ACDM airport or a non-ACDM airport. The thing is there a challenge? If there is a problem with some things like capacity constraints, congestions, and then we take it from there. And if we can provide a benefit for ACDM tools or the AODB, we're happy to do that. We're there more a provider and provide important information.
Okay. I get questions now about the accuracy, but I imagine your accuracy is basically dependent on the ADSB accuracy. Or did you also have experience using other sensors like radar or MLAT or even the output of a tracker?
Yeah, well, we have ones integrated also in MLAT feed. So in this area, we are actually well advanced. Also the accuracy of ADSB, if this was the question. This is the other question, what kind of accuracy is meant? Is it about the resolution? We have updates rates usually of 1 second per positioning data. So it's really about also about what kind of use cases there and what is the thinking behind accuracy? Accuracy, in my opinion, can depend on many things. Also, when I actually have one receiver here, when we put this one on the airport, it's also very important to have this located on a terminal building or on a tower or at a very good location, so that you have direct line of sight to the aircraft, and that helps a lot in detecting all the aircraft and have very good positioning data.
And what can you say about the accuracy of the predictions? They are probably based also as well on the accuracy on the data itself.
Yeah, exactly. It also depends on the kind of airport. This also makes a difference. Do you mean like how accurate it is to predict a certain flight from a certain origin airport?
For example?
Yeah, we're under 5 minutes accuracy to predict it when the aircraft actually takes off from the origin airport in Europe to another airport in Europe.
Nice. Very nice. One more question we have is, can you also predict or work in the short term so that you can give hints or suggestions to ATCOs or to pilots? Like, you need to reduce speed, you need to get a bit closer, you need to get a bit faster, you know, ready to work on a very tactical level, let's say in the next 2 to 3 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for this question. I think it's also a very important one, which comes along with the question of AI before, because there something we really want to go into. This is about, we currently detect holdings and detours. The next thing must be to also detect sector capacity and show where are the problems in the air during approach. Will I expect a lot of aircraft flying in a certain sector in some hours time, and maybe provide a suggestion tool. If you reduce speed, you might reduce the distance that you have to fly, or have to fly in holding patterns or so on. So this is definitely on the agenda, and it's quite funny because this idea we had around 2 years ago. But it's, of course, it's also a complex topic where we have to put a lot of effort in it. And midterm speaking, this is definitely one topic. Yes.
Thank you. Now I'd like to change the scope of the discussion a bit. We've talked about the solution, the kind of issue you can tackle. Where do you see concretely capacity issues at airports or airspace for now? I mean, in the days of COVID, there are obviously none, but you analyzed a few airports, and what are the typical bottlenecks that you've observed or highlight with your tools? And are there some that surprised you or some of your customers?
Well, generally, it's always about, you speak to clients, to ANSPs, airports, airlines. They usually know the problems already. They know that they have maybe introduced a high-speed taxiway, but they actually need to prove that it's actually used, because they expect maybe a lower runway occupancy time, but it doesn't help if the aircraft don't stick to it. And if you can detect it over time to see if there are actually still challenges and if it is working according to the rules, then our tool can help also in the communication process, because it's quite easy to use. Exactly, that is one use case. The other one is also sometimes also there's a lack of information. I mean, ACDM can help with a lot of information. Sometimes it's about accuracy. Sometimes it's also about how fast can I get this information. And with our tool, it's like one day after you get the information, you can even tell us, I need a certain KPI. I need to know something very specifically, we simply develop it. Same with de-icing processes. This information to share or to know, not just of your own operations, how long your de-icing process was, but to know it from everyone at each de-icing pad is also very valuable. And this is something where we provide also benefits.
Is there not a little risk that you become the big brother of airports and airlines, and that you look at the performance of everybody, and when someone has a bad day, you come to them and say, hey, on that day your de-icing was not so good, or hey guy, on that day you used one taxiway further down than all the others, what's going on with you?
Yeah, it's not so much about finger pointing or so. It's more about identifying there are things that can be done even better. It's not so much that there should be kind of a conflict. It's more about to know. I mean, sometimes it's simply that you know it from your own operations, but to know it that maybe another de-icing pad would be more beneficial because there the de-icing processes take lower. Then it's just a benefit for all of them. And if you can even reduce the queues that develop in front of the de-icing pads, then it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Great. So it's all about culture, just like ACDM.
Yeah.
Talking about culture and interaction, you are 2.5 years in the company now. Mm-hmm. How is it as a startup to deal with much larger, older, let's say, not always so dynamic companies like airlines, ANSPs, or airports are?
Yeah, basically it's the industry is of course it takes some time to develop something and to bring it on the market. You might have some higher sales cycles compared to other industries, but the greatest benefit, I think, is that the industry is not that big, and you can talk to each other, and being a small player has also a lot of benefits. I believe the most important thing is that that the players want to innovate, want to do better, and then it's also just about do they want to work together with smaller companies, and if they do, I have the feeling that it's actually a quite good cooperation with all stakeholders there.
So what would be your advice after 2.5 years to someone wanting to start a startup in aviation today?
Yeah, generally it's also about the sales cycles are a bit higher, I think, compared to other industries. This is one decisive factor that needs to be taken into consideration. But I think it's all about understanding the challenges in the industry. And this is very important to talk as soon as possible to the industry, to ANSPs, to airports, to understand what do they actually want, and develop a product and a software solution that provides the most benefit to them.
Thank you. I see no more questions coming in from the audience, but we are still here. So if you in the audience have questions, please feel free. We still have a few minutes. One question from my side then. Where do you see Aeroficial intelligence in 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, it's hard to say where exactly do I see it, but long-term speaking, especially products-wise speaking, we want to develop a platform that is capable of not just analyzing things. It's very important to analyze and to see what are the challenges, but on the other side also say what was the reason for that, to have more an interactive process between different processes of the flight, taking care about approach, taxi processes, and also in flight, and have also a feeling of a global rotational delay monitoring. So you actually, or this is our intention to predict upcoming events like congestions in the future. But to be honest, 5 years from now, I think there can happen a lot of things. Currently, I think this is very valuable to know beforehand when an aircraft will arrive at a certain gate position, not just 1 hour or 30 minutes before, but much longer. And for ANSPs also to know when a sector disruption will happen. So this direction we will definitely target.
Thank you. All more questions are coming in now. So I will go through the list one after the other. The COVID phase is obviously special for all of us. Airlines are grounded, ANSPs are running at very slow pace, some airports are even closed. What is your plan? Are you just waiting and go in winter hibernation mode, or do you just go as fast as you can and profit from that opportunity or the chances that could arise from the crisis? Or is it just business as usual for you?
Well, technically it's not possible because it's springtime, so I better prefer to work on the product, to understand the clients even better. I think the good thing about this crisis is that everyone is in a home office, and obviously they also have some minutes to discuss topics. This is the benefit. Of course, the COVID-19 crisis is something different to other crises because you don't have a termination date. You don't know when air traffic will recover and how fast it will recover. I think this is the biggest uncertainty at the moment. But we don't go into winter sleep. We will focus on the product. We will focus on the days after the crisis and the months after the crisis, because the problems are there. And this is exactly the point forward. And air traffic will recover. It's, in our opinion, just a matter of time.
Thank you. The next question comes back a bit to the scope and the in terms really of range of geographical extension. For, let's say, large to very large ANSP, like maybe Germany or even bigger at Eurocontrol scale, can you provide, or do you think it is possible to provide predictions in real time for such big spaces? And how far away do you have to look at data to know there will be disruption? Because takeoff of an aircraft that will cause disruption later on can be, even in extreme cases, on another continent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in this terms, it's very important to consider surveillance data, to have live information, to consider all the KPIs that are calculated, to also get an estimation on congestions, on detours, and especially also weather information. I think it really comes along with all the other data sources that you integrate, and what kind of feature set you have when training the model. But it's intended to also have this live on the web-based tool. And this is also a great benefit about cloud solutions. You can provide it to anyone in the world, doesn't matter of geographical location. The data is there, it's web-based, it's just about the account then. And I hope this answers the question.
So you are going really towards more than surveillance only. You implement NM, you mentioned already, and you have weather into it.
Yeah. I think this is this should be the way forward. Surveillance data is a very good source, a very good basis, but it gets even more powerful to have more information that overlaps with the time. And this is, of course, also weather. Air traffic is one thing, for instance, for holding patterns, but holdings can also occur due to some thunderstorms. It can have different reasons, and therefore you need different data sources.
And where are you now with the integration of all these data sources?
Well, we already integrated weather information for predictions. And I mean, the network manager is also integrated.
And do you have cases where you have multiple actors using one of your system, like you have one performance cockpit that goes at the same time to one airline and the airport they operate at, or the ANSP, or are all customers separate? And do you have privacy questions? Because if, for example, the airport gives you access to a CDM data, it could be that you cannot forward that data or data derived from that to other partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, currently it's not intended to integrate other IT systems and dig into production systems. This is obviously it's not intended, also due to security reasons, and that's not the path forward. Yeah. So I think this. I hope this answers the question. Or could you express a bit more?
Okay, so we still have a few minutes planned. So from the audience, I see no more questions coming. Any final words you'd like to add, Johannes, on the next years, the next steps for you, your wishes, what you are looking for?
Yeah, well, generally, I look forward to speak to a lot of people in the industry, also for cooperation opportunities. I think for to make innovation and to drive it forward, it's very important to know the challenges and to know what we can offer after the crisis. Also in these times, I mean, especially talking about airlines, it's currently a good stage also to think about how will they actually ramp up the processes afterwards? When can they actually plan again? And what do they need? What kind of routes are being operated? So there are also a lot of opportunities at the moment to work together on some solutions.
Just give me a second. I have questions coming in. Just have to wait. I think someone wants to ask a question directly, but I'm clarifying that. Just give me a second.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I see no other questions coming for now. So people from the audience, your last chance to raise your question to Johannes or give some feedback on that interview. Okay, sorry, my bad. I had a scrolling issue here. Yes, so that question is taking us away from the very tactical, but then going back to more strategical questions. Aviation is all about performance for sure. And financial performance is an aspect of that. Do you see yourself in the position to give advice to an airline on a longer term, let's say a few months or a season, how to better manage their resources, make things more predictable, and help them also in that financial performance direction?
Well, it's currently more based on flight performance indicators. So talking about financials, if I understood the question properly, this is currently not intended. We can show airlines where there are congestions, where they have problems in the ground processes at an airport. But long-term speaking, of course, there are a few applications that provide a lot of benefits. But are you talking about the current crisis?
No, I think it's more about, you know, saying an airline, okay, look, that flight is always late, or that flight always has issues, or here you have a flight which is in a peak hour at an airport.
Okay.
Because of that, you have that kind of impact. So really take a step back, looking not at flights exclusively, but at the season and at the better use airlines could do of their resources.
Yeah, and got it. Okay, yeah, for rotational planning and for to see what kind of aircraft had a problem over a certain time, and maybe every Saturday or so. Yeah, we can do that currently in the TMA of an airport. If we go into really also in-flight and rotations, then we will also cover these sections. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. So, ladies and gentlemen from the audience, your last chance to raise your hands or send your questions. Otherwise, I will very kindly thank Johannes for being the very first interviewee and the guinea pig of that experiment. Thank you as well to all attendees and registrants. And as someone just said in the chat, see you all latest next year in Madrid. Do you plan to have a booth next year in Madrid, maybe Aeroficial?
It's not decided yet, but it's a good start. Let's think about it. Yeah, hope it will take place.
Yeah. Oh, it will. It will.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
So, thank you very much, Johannes. Thank you to all you will get the link to the recordings very soon, probably tomorrow, and invitations and information about the next interviews. Thank you very much, Johannes.
Thank you, Vincent, for having me. Thanks.